What is going on, y'all? I'm Cam Best. Let's talk about Move Midrange in Marvel Snap. The Move Midrange deck is arguably the most consistent deck in Marvel Snap's high-level metagame right now. This is my current build. I am playing a Green Goblin in there because of the amount of decks that just try to flood the board. I found Green Goblin to be a little bit more useful than Spider-Man. That is the slot that he would be in, but of course he could also be Luke Cage. The main goal of this deck is to just consistently put points on the board. You have scaling 2-cost cards in the form of Angela, Kraven, and Elsa Bloodstone, and then you have the cards that synergize with your scaling 2-cost cards, like, of course, Silk, Jeff, Kitty Pryde, Nightcrawler. All of these are good with both Angela, Elsa, and Kraven, and you can sort of see how the deck sort of snowballs out from there. Now, this deck also is a Vision Alioth deck, but I am not actually convinced that you need to be an Alioth deck. I think that if you want to play this deck without Alioth, you could very easily replace it with Legion and still be able to play the game. In fact, replacing Alioth with Legion gives you a lot of flexibility on the final turn of the game. When you're playing Kitty Pryde with this deck, you often end up not being able to put Elsa buffs onto her if you want to play Alioth on the final turn of the game, or if you want to be visioning on turn 5. So you end up prioritizing cards like Nightcrawler, cards like Jeff, a little bit more than you would Kitty, because you are an Alioth deck that is likely going to be playing an Alioth on the final turn of the game. And most of the time, Chavez is actually going to be bigger than that Kitty too, because you don't want to be stuck with just a Kitty and 6-drops in your hand. That happened to me a couple of times. Now, if those 6-drops, if one of them happened to become a 5-drop, say Legion, suddenly you're really in business to start pumping the Kitty a lot more, to prioritize that with your Elsa Bloodstone, instead of just using it as a mechanism of moving Silk around the board, getting some Angela procs, and getting your Elsa procs onto other units. It's definitely something to consider. I know people are going to look at this and be like, how could you replace Alioth? But honestly, I think this deck is the Alioth deck that is the closest to being able to replace him as easily as you can get. This is a very easy cut if you want to make it for Legion. I'm not actually convinced it makes the deck worse at all. As previously noted, Kitty Pryde is not the primary beneficiary of your Elsa Bloodstone in this list. She's really just here to keep things moving. She is a card that allows you to play a 2+1 on turn 3. She gets your Silk moving across the board, pumping your Kraven maybe. She gets some extra procs on the Angela. She's a 1-cost card that you can use to get a buff onto a Nightcrawler or a Jeff, and then move that off. She's just good, but she is not the overwhelming win condition she is in the bounce versions of the Kitty Pryde and Elsa deck, or in the Loki version of the Kitty Pryde Elsa deck. Both those decks are focused much more on her. This deck is focused on Nightcrawler, on Jeff, on Vision, and on Alioth. It's doing that a lot more than it is doing gigantic Kitty Prydes. Nightcrawler is phenomenal in this list, one of the best possible cards you can get on turn 1, and during a lot of games, I'll end up just playing him out. I think the only real exception is if I have an Angela and don't have an Elsa Bloodstone, but especially if I have an Elsa Bloodstone, I will end up playing him out more often than not, with the idea that I can go Nightcrawler into Elsa into potential Kitty plus other guy, right? Unless there's an Angela conflicting there, the earlier you can get those buffs, the better. Now, if you don't think you're going to be able to get those Elsa buffs until turn 4 anyway, you do not have to play the Nightcrawler on turn 1, but that is the main determinant here is, do you think you can get some Elsa buffs on turn 3? If so, play the Nightcrawler if it is required for that to happen. If you do not think you can get some Elsa buffs on turn 3, then you're fine not playing the Nightcrawler and prioritizing things like Angela or getting a Silk moving. You should probably know by now why a deck like this is running Angela. She is one of the absolute biggest units in Marvel Snap for her cost, an undercosted 2-cost card that will often get to around 8 or 10. Extremely powerful. Do beware of Shadow King, although you can tech a Luke Cage in here if you are too afraid of Shadow King. Elsa Bloodstone's numbers are extremely powerful, and she is the core of God knows how many decks at this point. Elsa effectively ends up being somewhere between a 2.8 and a 2.11 most of the time you play her, with a floor of being about a 2.5. Her numbers fundamentally are just better than those on many other 2-cost cards. I hear everyone who is complaining about power creep, but my channel is about giving you the tools to compete, and I think Elsa is a very important tool for competing. If you are looking for a free-to-play deck, I highly recommend Shuri. I covered it in my most recent Top Decks video. I do apologize for the amount of Elsa content, but my job is to give you the best decks that I can, and so that is what I am doing. Kraven is a pretty solid unit, but the main thing I find value with him in is he is effectively like a backwards Elsa on your move cards. It's so scary when you have a Kraven and a Nightcrawler and a Jeff and a Vision, and you can do whatever you want with them. That's a really scary place for your opponent to be in, and you want to make them as scared as possible. This whole deck is about making your opponent scared and hopefully capitalizing on that in terms of cubes. Kraven, I would say, is the worst of the 3 scaling 2-cost cards, but he is still quite solid in a world where you are playing Nightcrawler, Jeff, Vision, and you are often relying on them to be game-winning in those situations. Especially in the context of Alioth existing, getting extra points on the units you already have on the board is very important. Jeff is awesome, and at this point, if you watch this channel, you know how awesome this card is. It is a spectacular card in general, and it's even better here. Taking Elsa buffs as the 4th card in a lane, but then allowing you to get more buffs by playing another card there. Buffing Kraven, using it to buff an Angela, and then moving it off the Angela. There's a ton of obvious synergies here. This is a card that you really need in a deck like this because of how it interacts with all your scaling 2-drops, and because of just how powerful those scaling 2-drops are. Mobius is my tech slot. I go back and forth on him versus Luke Cage, but I think at this point you need at least one of them, and the real determinant of which one you should be running is you run Mobius if you are more scared of Loki than you are of Shadow King, and at my MMR, I'm top 69 in North America right now. No, top 69 global. It's global. So I'm top 69 global right now. At my MMR, there's more Loki than there is Shadow King, so I'm running Mobius. That's pretty much a call you get to make. It's interesting that Silk is still good here, because this is actually, I think, the deck where I've found her to be the worst. Now, there are some specific interactions you're going to want to keep in mind in terms of how she works with Elsa Bloodstone, but the basic one you need to know is if she is the 3rd card in a lane, and you play a 4th card in a lane, and you have priority, you will get the buff. But this is important. If they play a card in the lane, move the Silk off before you can get that buff, you don't get the buff. So do keep that in mind. What's interesting to me about that is in almost every other case, what Elsa requires is the card being staged in the 4th spot. And for some reason, the Silk one doesn't work if the Silk moves off, because then it moves to the 3rd spot, I guess. I guess it has to be staged and played in that 4th spot. That's the only thing I can think of. So do keep that in mind when you plan on using Silk in this deck. I imagine you have 2 questions here. The first is, why are you playing Green Goblin? And the second is, why are you using a Pixel Green Goblin? So in answer to the first, there are a ton of decks that are just flooding the board right now, and I think Green Goblin is by far the best of the junk cards, the cards that clog your opponent's deck. I think Green Goblin is the best of them by a country mile. Like, it is just absolutely phenomenal. Green Goblin blocking a space in an Angela lane is just kind of unbelievable. And there are so many decks that are looking to use every spot on the board that giving them a -3 Goblin is just, it's chef's kiss. It's absolutely unbelievable. I cannot say enough about how impressive this card has been for me. I have always been a bit of a proponent for, if you want to beat mirrors in like sort of mid-rangey metas, you get a Goblin in there in Angela metas. I used to do this back in the beta. Back when everyone was playing Sarah as the Angela Bishop deck of choice, I was playing Goblins so that I could beat the mirror. That is still basically my plan. This was actually back in the negative days, so the other upside to Goblin was you could drop it, and they would be Iron Manning or whatever. It makes their Iron Man absolutely terrible. That's a bit of an aside, but basically, I have always kind of liked doing this, even back a year ago before the game even came out. I was kind of a let's use this spot on a goblin when both people are being mid-rangey Angela stuff. I enjoy it a lot, and it has been pretty successful for me. People are not really prepared to deal with this out of your deck. Of course, you know, I just made a video on it, so they might be now. My apologies for that. As far as the pixel one, I do want to explain my goblin ethos here, which is, if you are giving a card to your opponent, it should be the most annoying variant of the card possible. Now, this isn't like a hard rule for you. I would encourage you to do it, but it is a hard rule for me. I use the most annoying possible variant for the goblins. Whenever I'm going to like Hood Viper something for that, I want them to have to look at it and be like, oh my God. And that's why I'm using the pixel. I think it boosts my win rate. Vision's really damn good, especially when you get an Elsa buff on him, especially when you're moving him to a Craven lane. He could very easily be just like a 13 power card, just moving around the board. Quite solid, extremely strong. There's really not anything else I need to say about this at this point. Vision is a meta-defining card right now because of Elsa. Finding the best Elsa Vision Alioth deck is a key thing to do, and this deck genuinely does compete for that title, especially with the Goblin, because there are so many things where, like, look at that Brood lane, and then you can just dump a Goblin in there. But do keep in mind, when you dump a Goblin in there, that that might get a buff from a Silver Surfer. So just make sure you're aware of that, and you should have a little bit more of an advantage in that matchup, and I think that's kind of why I like where this list is at right now. All right, let's talk about the Fart Cloud. So, Alioth is a card that I think for me, honestly, causes me to lose a lot of games because all my games are streamed, and I definitely lose games where, like, people know where my Alioth is, or they know I don't have Alioth, or what have you. But I think this card is a little bit stronger than what would be reasonable, and a lot less fun than what would be reasonable. I genuinely would suggest that this card go to 4 power in the OTA. I think that would be a fine solution. Just taking it to 4 power and then buffing Captain Marvel to 5 would give you Captain Marvel, Silk, and Doombots as a viable method of playing around Alioth. I think that would be a pretty compelling change. As far as why it's good, I mean, basically what you're doing here is just setting up one lane that's too big for them to win, and then Aliothing another one. And this is another reason why Green Goblin is so good, is it helps you get towards those Alioth checkmates. And you can really lock up one lane with this deck and then just Alioth another one. And that's kind of all you need to do a lot of the time if you have priority. Like, when we look at the gameplay, there's going to be some gameplay of just like, I'm going to boomer snap this Alioth because I literally cannot lose. And then I just randomly get free 4 cubes. And that's, you know, that's not fun for me. I like the cubes, but, you know, all right, it's okay. Like, it's a little samey. Right? Alioth gameplay tends to be a little samey, so I do think they need to introduce maybe a little bit more counterplay into that by dropping him to 4 power, bringing Captain Marvel back up to 5. That would be where my head would be at for the OTA. I hope they manage to hear my cries of pain and make that change in time. I'm not going to tell you again why you need to run America Chavez in basically every deck I post, but I will tell you, a different you, for the first time, if you're anyone for the first time watching my videos, America Chavez is an unbelievable card in Marvel Snap. What she does is she makes your deck more consistent. Because you can only draw her on the final turn of the game, she makes you more likely to draw the important stuff in your deck on the other turns. Do you like playing Angela? She makes that happen more. Do you like playing Craven? She makes that happen more too. And because it's so important to get those cards in the early portions of the game and to start scaling them up, because again, this is a deck built around 3 scaling 2-cost cards. You want to be playing them as early as you can, and you want to be doing that as much as possible. America Chavez makes that more likely to happen. This is a very simple equation. And I actually did a whole video on America Chavez and why the devs don't like that we use her like this, because she makes so many decks better by not even really being a game piece, like High Evolutionary on crack. She is, you know, yeah, she's the budget High Evolutionary. You just put her in your deck and it gets better. And she is extremely powerful here because she is making sure that you are doing the thing that you want to do. This deck thrives because it is consistent. And you need to be, since it is such a consistent deck, Chavez obviously helps that happen, you need to be able to snap and retreat well. Because it's so consistent, you should have a good idea of your output. And that means that this is a deck that really rewards snapping and retreating properly. And I don't mean the same way that like a Mr. Negative type deck would reward snapping and retreating properly. I mean, this deck is so consistent that you should be able to be like within a couple points, be like, all right, I'm going to have this many points here and then I'm going to Alioth here. Like you should know that probably by like turn 4. Like you should know that pretty far ahead of schedule, I think, because your outputs are so consistent. All you need to do is be good at recognizing the situation you're in and recognizing what your opponent's likely outputs are. Chavez's consistency helps that happen. All right, y'all. That's going to be it from me. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, stick around for the gameplay that is going to be coming on after if you want to see how I pilot the list in High Infinite. If you want to see me play some more games of Marvel Snap, you can check me out. I am going to be live on Twitch at twitch.tv/KMBestMS. You can come in and watch one man face a horde of people who are slightly better than him, and he can get very, very mad about it. You can watch me get mad live, twitch.tv/KMBestMS. Thank you so much for watching. Of course, it is always, as always, is a pleasure. I am KMBest. I will see you in the next one. Green Goblin is just a good card. All right. I'll play it. I'm interested. I'm interested in what happens here. I got the energy. They're going for a Loki? That's nice. I can't argue that that isn't nice. It's very nice. What? Isn't every Jeff variant just incredibly cute? Aren't all the Jeff variants the cutest possible thing? That's what I think. That's what I think, sir. Dude, not having Luke Cage, the second I took him out, it's actually killing me. It's like unironically insanely depressing. What is up with this crap, man? Jeez. Got 3 cards in hand. Why? How would that be the thing you did? So we're playing 50-50s on where this Eliath goes and if he has Eliath here. And if he does have Eliath, where would he be likely to play it? Ooh! Ooh, wait. Yes! Get farted on! You've been farted! We dodged the Eliath. We dodged the Eliath. You've been farted on, sir. You have been farted. A fart on all your houses. Which is not to say, you know, everyone playing me on stream is sniping, but it's been a really long time. It's been a really, really, really long time. April of 1998. Sounds right to me. That sounds right to me. I believe it. I can't recall winning an 8 cube. As ridiculous as that may sound, I can't recall it happening. Spectrum is enough, but it doesn't win them any other lanes. Yep. Silk, not great on this location, is she? I guess she's not a god-awful. Ooh. Ooh, I enjoy seeing this. Ghost Rider does nothing. Echo does nothing. Now they are Cerebro 2. No, wait, what are they? I don't know. I don't know what they are. Is there any way this possibly goes wrong? No. Get farted on. I would have moved the Jeff for priority. I don't see how that would have helped anything. I don't see how me having priority would have helped anything there. Never gonna get prio here, baby. Yeah? You think Snap is bad since Eliath came out? Interesting. Nas. Am I about to let Nas down? Oh my god, call me J. Cole, because I'm about to let Nas down. Ew. I don't want them to know I'm a move deck, so I want to maintain my ability to snap until next turn. I'd say we won that Sokovia. Yeah, I would say we probably won that Sokovia. I like Jeff. Really good card. Definitely a lot of what I want to be doing here. 0. Ebony Maw. Okay. Craven's about to get fucking buck wild. Sauron on 3 there. Okay. 2 cards in hand. And we can go Vision on Cosmos. Craven gets big as hell. Craven gets big as hell. Is that a Shuri? That is a Shuri. All right. Whoa! Crazy! So now we play the guessing game. We play the guessing game here. Oh, I'm the greatest! I'm the greatest! The greatest Eliath gamer to ever live.